Let's review BenQ latest Pro Designer display PD2706UA. This one is definitely unique because it has BenQ latest Ergo Arm, which you can mount on the desk differently. Let's find out what I think about the panel and also the ergonomics of the Ergo Arm. This is ArtIsRight. Before we start, subscribe if you're new and hit on the bell icon so you'll be notified every time I upload cool new videos like this. This will be an in-depth review and I'll have timestamp to the various sections below. For full disclosure, I am BenQ Global Ambassador for their Pro Display line. This would include their SW hardware calibrated display for photographers and their Pro Designers PD series. BenQ have sent me this to unboxing, review, long-term testing, and educational videos that I'll be posting on this channel. And as usual with any reviews on my channel, all the opinions are definitely going to be my own. I'll start out this review by answering two questions. First, who is the target audience for the PD line display and where does this particular model fit into the lineup? Let's first start out with the who. As the name suggested, PD, Pro Designers. It's really made with Pro Designers across any type of medium in mind. However, as the product line grew, the intended audience also grew as well. This now includes content creators and creative across multiple disciplines, which includes CAD/CAM, animators, video editors, YouTubers, and photographers whose main intention is to produce work for digital consumption. If you are a photographer who prints or have any inclination that you may print in the future, I would highly recommend that you look at BenQ SW hardware calibrated display. The reason why is because all the models in the SW lineup has a coverage for 99% Adobe RGB, which is the color gamut that is best represented for CMYK and any type of photographic printing. Hopefully this highlights one of the main differences between the PD and SW line. Now, where does this PD display fit into the lineup? I would say this is more of BenQ PD mid-range model. You may wonder what's the difference between this and the entry model. The variation would really come down to the color gamut coverage. For instance, this model PD2706UA can show 95% P3 color gamut. This can't be said for the entry model. When it comes to this and the flagship, the color gamuts are going to be similar. However, the variation comes in the connectivity. The flagship model will generally come with a Thunderbolt type connection instead of USB-C, which enables display daisy chaining and a lot more capabilities through the various USB port that's on the display. And even though this model comes with USB-C connection, you still get the benefit of having just one cable that carries all the signal for you. The product naming also hints where the display sits in the series as well. Lower last two-digit number denotes entry model, higher denotes flagship. The current lineup so far for the 27-inch is 05, 06, and 25, from entry to flagship respectively. Now I'd like to quickly touch on the new stand from BenQ, which is the arm, hence the A in the model name. And you're looking at that right now. First, many have asked whether this arm is compatible with an SW display, and I have tested this with my SW270C and I can say that it is not compatible with it. The main reason why is because the depth for the mounting plate is different on the SW and PD display. In addition, only PD models that ships with this arm is compatible with it at this moment. At this point in time, the arm is not available to be purchased as a separate accessory. So you have to order the display knowing whether you want to get the desktop stand version or the Ergo Arm version. If you want the Ergo Arm, you want to order the model that has the A in the naming. So far, there are 3 PD models that has the Ergo Arm option. It will be this model, along with the PD2705UA and the PD3205UA. And with those information out of the way, let's talk about the panel. It is a 27-inch diagonally measured IPS LED backlight. It also comes with a 10-bit LCD panel that's done via an 8-bit plus FRC and can show 1.07 billion colors with contrast ratio of 1200:1 and a max brightness of 350 nits. Some of you may say, is 350 nits enough? I would say that for majority of creative work that you are going to be doing on this display, it is more than plenty. It is also VESA Display HDR 400 certified with support for HDR10 media profile. It has a 16:9 aspect ratio with a 4K UHD resolution that is 3840 by 2160. and a pixel pitch of about 163 pixels per inch. And miraculously, it is Mac compatible. In fact, it is linked up to my Mac right now. I say this facetiously because I get the following questions all the time. I heard that 4K is not compatible with Mac, or I heard that the most optimal pixel pitch for Mac is either 110 or 220 pixels per inch. Sadly, many of these information are totally incorrect. I can tell you that macOS and Mac hardware is display resolution and pixel pitch agnostic. As long as you can output the signal with a compatible connector, it is going to show the picture on the display. So let me reiterate by saying that this display, along with all other 4K displays, will work with Mac without any issues. This 4K debate is similar to the 2K versus 4K conversation we have in the past, particularly on these higher resolution displays such as a 4, 5, or 6K. If you try to run them at native resolution, the font and the graphical user interface becomes too small for our eyes to see and read comfortably. So we scale the resolution. This is done by default on displays linked up to a Mac that has a resolution of 4K or higher. And because the 4K display pixel pitch does not exceed the 200 pixels per inch magic number that Apple's consider a display to be Retina, some may perceive certain text and graphic items as being a little soft or blurry. I found that this is a highly personal and subjective preference. My best recommendation is for you to see this in person. This way you get a chance to see if this is acceptable for you and your creative workflow. I can tell you that I have been using 4K displays with Mac for close to a decade now, and personally for me, I don't have any issues with it. However, I do hear the arguments from both sides, and the best thing that you can do is to see this for yourself. And with that said, let's move on. All PD displays come with its own calibration report, with a guaranteed delta E of less than 3. However, I can tell you that from my experience unboxing PD display, I found that all of the time the delta E has been less than 2, and many times it is below 1. This display is factory calibrated. However, because our computer is not outputting the standard reference signal, the best thing that you can do is to custom profile your display to get the best and most accurate color possible. And because this is a software calibrated display, you are reliant on the color gamut that has been calibrated from the factory. Meaning that if you want to use this display in a specific color gamut, you have to choose the color mode before you work on your creative workflow and before you run the calibration. The following are color modes that are present on this display: Animation, CAD-CAM, Darkroom, DCI-P3, DICOM, Display P3, ePaper, HDR, Low Blue Light, MBook, Rec 709, sRGB, and User. This PD2706U and also the UA can show 95% P3 color gamut along with a 99% sRGB and Rec 709. Speaking of which, I have run a calibration in Display P3 color mode and I was able to get an average delta E of 0.4 with a max delta E of 0.7. This is an extremely great value, and for reference, a good display would have an average delta E of less than 3. A great display has a delta E of less than 2. I also ran the calibration in sRGB color mode and I was able to achieve an average delta E of 0.5, which is also really fantastic. Next up is uniformity. This display features BenQ latest uniformity technology and a new implementation. In previous generation PDs, uniformity is enabled only on selective color modes. Now, with this newer generation, uniformity is done throughout the entire panel on all color modes, and you have the option to turn on or off uniformity globally. My recommendation is to leave this on because it comes by default, but you're going to get a much more uniform picture that way. Uniformity, by the way, is referring to the color variation between the different areas of the panel. And I was able to run a uniformity test with the delta E set to 5, and this panel passed on all areas, white, gray, and dark grays without any issue. This is really impressive for, I would say, a mid-tier PD display. Backlight bleeding, which is usually the side effect of an IPS LED backlight panel. This is fairly minimized on this model because of the uniformity calibration from the factory. One more thing I want to mention about the panel is that there is a sticker saying "Do not tear." This is because there is a layer on the screen that, if you look closely, resembles something that looks similar to a plastic screen protector. However, it is not. So please do not peel this off from your display, otherwise you risk damaging the panel. Next up is connectivity. This display has the latest USB Type-C connection that can deliver 90 watts of power to your portable device. For those of you who are wondering, this is the smart type connector, so if you link this up to a desktop, the initial handshake will tell it not to send any power. On a larger laptop such as a 16-inch MacBook Pro, under sustained load, it will provide enough power to your device, however, it may not charge your battery simultaneously. Under light load, it will be able to power and charge your laptop without any issues. In addition, it also has one HDMI 2.0, one full DisplayPort 1.4, one USB Type-B upstream, 3 USB 3.2 downstream, and one USB-C downstream. 2 of those Type-A connections are on the back of the panel, while one of the Type-A and Type-C, along with a 3.5mm headphone jacks, are on the right side of the display for easy access. The display also has 2 built-in 2.5 watt speakers. In addition, the display also has KVM function that auto pairs the USB upstream with the video input source. There are a few nuances with this KVM setting. I'll have a separate video talking about this later on. However, in these new models, BenQ have significantly improved the KVM function and the ease of setup. In addition to this, there's also a new label on the back of the display that helps user identify various KVM connections. As usual, with any BenQ Pro display lineup, it has the ability to do picture-in-picture, picture-by-picture, which enables you to see and work with 2 computers. In addition, there is a mode called Dual View that allows you to view 2 different color modes or gamut at once on the same monitor. This will be something that we'll explore further in a future video. Let me know if you want to see this in a comment below. BenQ also has a companion software called Display Pilot that you can use in conjunction with any PD displays. And in addition, if you want to use Display Pilot with SAB display with some limited functionality, you can certainly do that too. I've gone over Display Pilot in my BenQ PD2706UA review. I'll leave a link to that video in the description below. Like all SW and majority of PD models, this PD2706UA along with the U version are CalMan verified, Pantone validated, and Pantone skin tone validated. The latter being an extension to the already extensive Pantone matching system, or PMS. With this, Pantone color scientists have gone through great length to measure and catalog diverse skin tone representation to formulate these new color patches, so the skin tone can be reproduced with true authenticity. In addition, the tolerances and quality control is even stricter for a display to achieve this validation. Simply put, you are getting a really great panel that can reproduce color accurately. In addition, the entry model PD2705U and UA along with the PD3205U and UA were the world's first Pantone skin tone validated display. The more you know. We are approaching the end of the review, so the last thing I'll touch on is the design and ergonomic. Let's first talk about the design. This display follows closely the industrial design of PD displays that have come before it. It is sleek, minimalist, unobtrusive, exactly what we want in a Pro display so we can immerse ourselves in the creative work. It has 3 sides infinity edge, which many of us really likes and prefer. However, the one thing I found testing this, and because of the Ergo Arm, there's an increased likelihood that you're going to move the display around, and these edges can be a fingerprint magnet. You can try to maneuver the display carefully by just holding the edges, but it may not be as convenient dexterity-wise. At the bottom, we have a silver bar with no BenQ logo or branding. I think this looks really nice and sleek on this particular model, although some does not really prefer this. On the back right side of the display, there are 3 buttons and also one 5-way joystick for the display menu control. There's also an on-screen guide that accompanies the joystick, and one thing to note is if you see that, the guide is really for the joystick on the back of the display and not for the Hotkey Puck that comes with the display. And if you're used to BenQ Pro displays, they all come with the 2nd generation Hotkey Puck for some time. Now let's talk about the Ergo Arm. you have the option to purchase this display with the arm. That will be the PD2706UA, or a desktop stand version that is the PD2706U. As of now, you have to make this choice when you purchase the display. The arm at the time of this review is not available as a separate purchase, and it is also not compatible with all display models, nor it is compatible with SW display. That said, I think this is one of BenQ's best accessory design that I've tested so far. The ease of movement of the display on the arm is extremely smooth, effortless, and the range of motion and posture dexterity that you can put this display in is really almost limitless. This is something that can't easily be done with a desktop stand. Some great uses for this that comes to mind is in a design or collaborative area, a point of sale, or a customer service counter. The biggest benefit of the Ergo Arm that I can see is that this really frees up your desktop space, allowing you more room to work. A few tips on setting up the Ergo Arm. Obviously, first mount it to the table or countertop where you want this to be, put the display on it. But before you go through and really thread the cables, I recommend extending the display out all the way, as you're seeing right now. Also push it down to its lowest position and also angle it back. This is going to give you a really good gauge of how much extra wire length you are going to need to thread through the various portions of the arm. This way, if you move the display around a lot, you don't have to worry about the wires being too taut, or you have to open this up and adjust the wire again. So this is definitely one of those things to really think about. A couple of other things I actually want to touch on about this is I have put in a few extra Velcro for the wire, and this is also the reason why I'm using red Velcro. So you can see this right here. I put one extra Velcro to have the wires on the bottom there. This way it's not really just dangling on the table. The other position that I put the Velcro on is pretty much right there. This way the wires are all bundled together and they don't pretty much just go all apart, or if you have more than just two wires running, they would just stay together very nicely like you're seeing right now. The other reason why I'm using red is so you can see exactly where I'm putting these Velcro. In the future, I really wish that BenQ would come up with some ideas to maybe harness the wires right directly to the back of the display around underneath where the arm goes, or something along this line that makes cable management on this portion a lot better. Now, I will say though that BenQ have done a fantastic job with the actual arm itself. So to open this up, you really just push that back and it is pretty much just magnetic like so. I mean, it's really well done. The plastic is really good quality. I mean, if you really twist it around, you can probably break it, but I mean, it's really well done. Inside here, you will see that there are many grooves that will hold the wire together and it will go down to the very bottom like you're seeing right now. So I am going to put the wire back and we'll simply just put the cover back on. And like I said, because this is magnetic, it just snaps on very easily like that. The other thing I also want to point out is that on the back of the display, there is this plastic panel. This can be a little bit more flimsy. However, once you are used to, attaching it and putting it back on and so forth, it's not quite as bad. But this panel itself, as you're about to see in just a moment, is a little bit more mechanical, and it requires that these grooves, for example, go into the display. Once they're in, they just snap in. It looks really nice. It makes the display look really clean. But again, the panel can be a little flimsy, and I really wish they used the same magnetic mechanism they use here on this panel as well. All right. With that said, the Ergo Arm can be mounted on a table or countertop of various thickness, and there are different accommodations that this can really go in. In addition, if you already have a hole pre-drilled, as long as the diameter of that hole is 2¼ inch or around 5.7 centimeters, the arm will fit into that hole just fine, and you can also mount it on a countertop or a table that way too. A few more thoughts I have about the Ergo Arm. Starting with the USB Type-C cable, BenQ have now included a longer cable that is 6 feet or 1.83 meters. This is really great because if you have set up this PD display with an Ergo Arm in the way how I have suggested earlier in this review, by extending it out all the way, pushing it down and angling it up, majority of the cables that you have are going to be used as part of the arm and also in the vertical arm itself. This is going to leave you with about 1 foot or 30 centimeters of USB Type-C cable left on the table. Now, if you're using this with a desktop Mac, for example, a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio, that's probably not going to be an issue. With a desktop PC, it ultimately depends on where you set up the case and where the display is positioned on the table. So that's one of those arguments and something that you need to think about. However, if you have a laptop and you want to use this in a dual screen setup, this may somewhat limit where you can place the display and the laptop on the table. For instance, if you have a laptop that has a USB Type-C or Thunderbolt connection on either side of the device, for example, I have my 16-inch MacBook Pro, or if you have a 14-inch MacBook Pro, this would be the exact same story, and also some PC laptop as well. You can certainly have the device on, for instance, the left side of the display, and the display can just be on the right side like so without any issues. This would apply to the PC as well, and this machine can also go on, for instance, the right side, leaving the display on the left side too. However, if you have selected machines, for example, I have a Zephyrus G14 that has a USB Type-C with DisplayPort overlay only on the left side of the device, or if you have a MacBook Air or MacBook Pro with USB Type-C Thunderbolt ports on the left side of the device only, you're somewhat limited. The device have to remain on the right side of the display with this cable length, the 6 feet one that comes with the display. So if you want more flexibility, my recommendation is to go out and buy yourself a 10-foot USB Type-C cable. That's going to give you a lot more room in terms of just where you want your devices to be set up on the table. Now, the other thing I also want to point out is that the Hotkey Puck that comes with this PD display is the standard Hotkey Puck that ships with all BenQ SW and PD models. Problem being is that if you run the Hotkey Puck cable and you thread this through the Ergo Arm like so, well, the length that's left on the table is maybe about, I would probably say 4 to 6 inches that you're seeing right now on the screen. So it doesn't give you that much length. And if you want to pull it further, you really can't because there's not that much more room to this. So my advice to BenQ would probably be maybe come up with a Hotkey Puck that is specifically for the Ergo Arm display that has a little bit more length. This way you can thread it through your arm, everything will look nice, and you can still use the Hotkey Puck a little bit more freely. So that would be just one of the advice that I have. Now, the other thing that you can do is to not thread the cable for the Hotkey Puck through the arm and just plug it directly into the back of the display, to which the cable would then drop down. And I would say that speaking visually, I like threading the cable through the arm better, but those are just some of the things to really think about. And with that being said, we are approaching the end of this review. Here are some eco facts I'd like to share with you about this display. So, starting out, this display is a mercury-free LED backlight display. The plastic casing on the display are BFR, PVC-free, and the ink they use on the packaging are eco-friendly ink. These are the step in the right direction. However, I wish they come up with an alternative to the foam padding, very similar to the SW line, and that they would eliminate the light foam protective bags and also the plastic bags for the cable. I mean, I would say that this is one small step at a time and they are moving in the right direction, but if they could just do that extra more thing, it would be even that much better. Anyway, this has been a lot of information. If you have any questions or comments, anything else that you'd like to know about this or want me to test, leave them in the comments section below. Give this a like, subscribe, and hit on the bell if you're new, and in art we trust.